Okay, I'm going to ask you again. Your style, just in 3 words this time. Your own style.
I would say thoughtful, and therefore tie that with being sort of mindful. I think thoughtful, timeless, and elegance. I think that's what I would like to stand for, because it shows your development as a person. You're not swaying. It doesn't mean that one is not open to change the times, but one is open, but it's more long term,
It's more conscious, I think.
more
You're more
conscious, and
conscious.
yeah.
I'm your host, Taylor Elizabeth, and today I'm sitting across from someone who doesn't follow trends. He sets quiet standards. You may not often see him in the spotlight, but you've certainly seen his work in several red carpet moments or A-list Bollywood stars. His design speaks long before the wearer does. Please welcome Govinda Mehta. Thank you so much for being here.
Very happy to be here.
Yeah, it's really an immense pleasure. So thank you so much for accepting this invitation.
Oh my God, it sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
Great, thank you. So let's rewind a little bit. Before the fittings, the famous names, what were your early days like?
For the famous names, so I stumbled upon doing what I'm doing today. My sort of educational path has been a bachelor's in business administration in Ithaca, upstate New York. I did 4 years there, and I graduated in 2002. I came back into India for sort of not so very good situations. My parents were getting separated, and I come back and sort of assist with their dialogue. And I came back to India in 2002, dived into work. My family business is rugs and textiles. We were an export firm that made carpets and textiles for retailers in the US, so Bed Bath and Beyond, the Bombay Company, linens and things. So I dived into working with a 100 machine factory that produced the textiles for these branded stores, and that gave me a sense of doing what I would. That give me a strength in operations and a strength in understanding manufacturing and how to work with people that actually make things happen. Uh, we unfortunately had a bit of bad luck in that business, and I took a leap of faith several years later to begin the business of fashion in terms of doing what I'm doing today. So my business is helping people present themselves to the best of their ability, and some of it just comes through just mindful approach to a whole and mindful and holistic approach to the way that one has to dress and look. So I took a leap of faith and began this business, and purely by word of mouth, I was taking people to a shop where we'll buy fabric, and then I was taking them to a tailor that would actually tailor my clothes, and I was merging them together. And I realized that when people are willing to do this for going to 2, 3 places to achieve one goal, then maybe there's an opportunity in this, and that's really how I began my business. And 15 years later, it seemed like the best decision I made in my life, and it's changed my life completely. And it's my outlook to everything has changed completely in that span.
I love the word mindfulness that you've used a couple of times, even from the beginning. And I think that leap of faith, I would like to just dig a little bit deeper into that leap of faith. What did that feel like? I mean, because this is really decoding success because you trusted yourself in that leap of faith. How would you describe that process for you?
Perhaps the certain things that I was growing up experiencing when I was growing up. One of the things we have in India is you tend to sort of lean on outside resources of alternative healing beyond basic educational formats of reading, etc. You have healers, and you'll have people in your life that sort of assist you or guide you in your way. And one of the people has actually told me to follow my intuition. So one of the things that I kind of follow, one of the things that resonated with me was following of my intuition. And it what that really means is just going with your gut. And so when I was faced with a situation where I needed to do something different in my family business, having gone through the trouble we went through the latter years, I was welcoming a lady into my life, Karishma. My wife and I were getting married, and I didn't want to have to ask my dad about anything in life. So at that point, I was in a situation where I felt that I needed to step out and do something of my own, and that's when I took that leap of faith. Now, if you just tie the two together, which is going with your gut and the leap of faith, they both tend to work out. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I must admit, it presented itself to me, and it ended up being my greatest passion, which was clothing and sort of presenting yourself to the best of your ability. And I married these two together, and the leap of faith wasn't necessarily one where I needed a lot of courage. It just went by taking one day at a time, and If something worked, I went further with it, positively reinforced it. If something didn't work, I took a step back and I re-looked at the process and then reapproached it in a different way.
When you're stuck in something, just taking any kind of step of any direction, even if it's like a baby step, is how you actually move.
That is absolutely correct. That is absolutely correct. And a step in a direction where the universe will then align it, sort of align with you, and the intent has to be right. You have to just make an effort, and then all the energies of the world will come and support you and push you. It's a leap of faith or support. I will say many a times God supported my decision in that sense. So yes, I think that's true. Any sort of movement is positive movement.
Exactly. Moving forward, even if it's just something, it will, because it's actually shifting your mindset. And that's the most important thing. And you're supporting yourself because you're giving yourself confidence that you can make some kind of change, even if it's not focusing on the end goal, but on the journey towards that.
Their journey is most important. Even my college's name, actually, Ithaca means journey. All these things come back to me at a later time in my life. I had no idea that they played a role at some part in my life.
Yeah. How was it being in the United States and educated in the United States? How do you think that affect maybe your mindset in any way, shape, or form?
So my story is a bit different. My story was when I was younger. I always wanted what I thought was a hard way of life, and because we were came from a privileged background. I grew up in a family that was successful, and I wanted the tougher way of life. And obviously, at that point meant going to boarding school or something of that nature. Later, when I got to know my dad, as in our relationship sort of tended to grew, one of the things he told me was that the hard way doesn't necessarily only mean the way that I thought it meant. It means making the best out of any situation. He had mentioned about how he had the best years of his life when he went to Northampton to study a CPA, to be a CPA. And he made the best out of this tiny little town in the best years of his life. So one of the things that we were looking at doing, or what I was interested in doing, was, while academics were important, I wanted to go to a place where there were no Indians. And at that point in time, because I felt that would force you to stretch and widen yourself. If you're not in a comfort zone, if you're put in a place where you have to grow, you tend to step up to the sort of plate and grow. When I went to Ithaca College, there was only one other peer of mine that went from Bombay. It was a boy that I met years ago through multiple birthday parties that I visited when I was younger. And we landed up in college, and Ithaca was a school, private school. It was I think, it had 2,000, 3,000 students in total. It had a 500 people business program. We were the only two Indians at that time in school in the business program, and we were different. And I think we were put in a place from year one, in a place where I was forced to grow. I went from a very sheltered life in Bombay to having a Dominican roommate the first year in college. And you can only imagine there's very, very, very different from where I was in Bombay. It stretched me and made me who I am. I think that if you are put into a situation where you have to be better at what you do or just make the best out of it, I think that really makes you a better person. Again, my education has nothing to do with what I've ended up doing today, but it's made me who I am. Or that experiences, every experience, why people say travel, is because these experiences or things that you pick up when you're there is what shapes you at a later times of your life.
Absolutely. You're actually one of the several guests that we've had that have talked about, if you're going to give one advice to somebody, a younger person, would be to travel for the exposure, for the experience, because it shapes, forms, and challenges you in ways.
Mindful travel where you're looking to sort of put yourself in a situation where you are going to stretch. Whether it's in a place where you're going where nobody speaks the language, or it's a place where you're having difficulty communicating with somebody or getting to where you need to get, just finding a way to make it work. I think that's what these experiences allow you to be, what shapes you, because life is never going to be easy. You're always going to have challenges. You're always going to face some sort of inhibition or something that's going to hold you back from doing it. And you will have to have your daily wins, your small wins to get through that. I think that's what college taught me, and it also, being open to the Western world at a young age today, in the frame of mindset that I was, not realizing what I experienced, which I'll get into later. I think it was the right time and place for me to be there. It was the right time. I went to college, and one of my first jobs was working in a bakery. I mean, how humbling is that? I mean, we come from a place where you have 3 staff members or 4 staff members at home, one to take the dog down, one for all the other work at home. I was actually cleaning large vessels where they were making bakery products for our canteen. So I was paid $11 an hour. I mean, so it's mind blowing. And then one of my other jobs was working as a trainer in gym, and the other job was working as a bartender in a nightclub and a bartender in a bar in college town in Cornell. And I think again that being there, that opportunity stretched me to be who I am. It put you in a situation where the comfort zone is not there. Like later in my college career, I had a chance to decide whether I wanted to move to Cornell or move to another college. You decide where you want to put in that effort and do it. But the whole idea of so many similar people from the same culture that I'm at is you don't grow. You don't grow if you're in a same place in your comfort zone. I think that there was a meme that I read once is that there's a cloud and it says, here's your comfort zone, and it says out of your comfort zone. Growth happens here, and I feel that so I did things of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can see that. You could see it actually in the reflection of when you were talking about your process when you decided to take that leap of faith. Because what you said very poignantly is that there were moments where things maybe didn't work out exactly as you wanted, but you learned from it, right? The learning from it is when you're so used to, and I'm going to put that in quotations, when you're so used to being uncomfortable about things, and when something doesn't go the way you had planned, you're not comfortable anymore, but you decide to learn from it. It means that you have gone through the process of real growth because you know how to deal with things when they come that way and you excel at it afterwards. This is success.
So prior to meeting the stars, and even when I met the stars, it was my first star that we worked with was Farhan Akhtar. I think he was growing in his career. I was not very Bollywood inclined. I did not watch many Bollywood movies. I was never starstruck. There was a friend of mine that was working on a movie with him. He liked what he wore to one of the premieres. The agent reached out to me saying, Farhan would like to meet you. Went to his house. He was training. He was doing a movie called Bhag Mika Bhag. And he had a sense that this movie was going to be something and it was going to award him every sort of award that year or the next couple of years. And he just said, hey, listen, this is what I'm going to do. I guess he manifested it. I'm going to win every award. I'm going to do this. Let's get on and let's work on my image and my clothing. That's how I met Farhan and continued that way for the next 7, 8, 10 years. And we had a chance to work on every public image that he had to present of himself. And it was a beautiful relationship, a very mutually respectful relationship where it wasn't one when I was only on the doing end. It was both of it in that sense. Then we had a chance to meet a guy called Ranveer Singh, who was booming and growing in the industry at that time as well. Super personality, very caring, mindful, conscious, respectful. That also worked out really well. We've had a chance to work with a few other actors and celebrities, and more so, however, I kind of moved my focus towards what I call everyday heroes and everyday facilitators and entrepreneurs and bankers and lawyers. So that was my bread and butter. The movie stars was also on a personal level. Whatever I did for them was on a personal level. I never did stuff for them for movies. I only worked on their ad films or I worked on their own personal clothing. But the real cream of it, or the way my business model is spread, is it's a very wide base. No one person brings in a large sort of part of what I do. It's everybody collectively brings in that. It also keeps me humble, keeps you focused, keeps you grounded. Yes. Otherwise, you can tend to sort of go astray.
It's true.
So that's a little bit about these guys, what I was doing, and a bit more about the path that I followed.
Yeah, no, I think it's amazing. I'd actually like to delve a little bit more into one of the passion was that you was styling yourself, from what I understood. Probably also, I'll just take a leap here, but probably also textiles and fabric, considering where you were coming from. I also have a huge passion for fabric. I love fabric. Usually wherever I go and travel to, I always buy fabric from that place because I love it. And being quite tall myself, I have most of my clothing made because of size. So, and I love that. Can you talk to a little bit more about transitioning the passions that you had into what you're doing now?
It grew into a passion. I enjoyed dressing well and I enjoyed receiving those compliments. And I know that when I had a chance to work with a few people and they felt good about themselves, then the value that brought to you, it was very fulfilling. So when I was addicted to that feeling of how somebody would feel post me having guided them in terms of what to wear or putting that look together, and that's really where the journey started for me.
You're talking about two very important things, which are intentionality, which I think people need to, the difference between being intentional and being like manipulative are a very different thing. Intentional is investing in self in a lot of ways, a lot of self-awareness, and it is a skill that you grow and develop. So they're saying, oh, you took a lot of time in what you're styling yourself, but actually it only took you 5 minutes because once you do it, you get used to it. It's a skill, it's a habit, it's a skill you develop.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's easy, but we have to be very important about it. It's very important. I mean, intentionality is very important because that is what people perceive more than anything else. And so that really impacts what people think about you if that's your first impression, right? So if you're showing up intentionally, you're not just showing up physically intentionally, you're showing up for a lot of people in every way intentionally. And that makes a very big impact on
I think if people are able to see the vibes, or experience the vibes and all that comes with it, then yes, it is very positive in that sense. But that is, most people that know me will actually talk about how authentic that is. My style is authentic. That is who I am by nature. I'm what you see is what you get, and my thought word is my spoken word. So yes, with hopefully people are able to sort of appreciate that, and in today's world, yes.
I think oftentimes it is said about when you do design for people, it's very intentional, but it's also a very emotional process as well. Something you just spoke about. Will you talk to us a little bit about that?
So when I look at people, the emotional part for me is a bit less, and I'll be honest, and that's a little bit different from creators. Is because for me, I've not learned the world of design. I didn't go to design school. I looked at this business more as a business. I got into it as a business, which is a practical way. There is a need, there is an opportunity. We fulfill it in a positively intentional way, and then you're able to achieve a result. So for me, when I actually meet a client, I'm able to see the potential that in terms of what the client has. I don't experience the baggage that he has, which is his strengths or weaknesses, or what he thinks his strengths or weaknesses are. I look at him afresh. Whether it's I look at the skin tone, I look at the body structure, I look at his strengths, look at his weaknesses, what needs to be highlighted, what needs to be hidden, what needs to be distracted or deflected. So these are the things we're going to look at. Sometimes, believe it or not, there's a guy who came to my office that had beautiful eyes and no focus. He had a beard, his skin was dark, he had hair over his head, and his eyes were completely being hidden. But I said two things. I said, one is get eye drops because your whiteness in your eyes needs to reflect how beautiful your eyes are, and two is clean up the mess around you to allow people to appreciate the things that God has given you. So I look at most of people's clothing are creative. Now, this is that learning and designer part is most people that are designers are learning to design. They're learning to create something. They're intentionally creating something that is creative or design like. That tends to hide the actual person's potential. You know what I mean? That actually tends what is showcased is the creativity. What is not showcased is the person. So what we do is we work on why I do things differently is we work on bringing the person out. We don't look on applying onto them. So if we're doing a suit or we're doing a shirt or we're doing a gilet or an overshirt, first is the skin tone, body structure, color of fabric, how the fabric falls, how it lends that person. Those are all the things we're focusing on. Creativity comes last. Because if one is able to focus on these simple things and find the right balance, then magic is created at that stage itself. If you look at a photograph on Pinterest, for example, most people will sign a very simple photograph, but is so attracted to this photograph because everything. Like there's a gentleman wearing a white shirt and blue jeans, and I've had so many clients that will send me this reference and say, "I want this." I'm like, "What is this?" There's nothing to this. But the beauty is that everything in that picture is controlled and is perfect. The background is controlled. The right amount of light is there. The right color combination. All those are managed. If somebody is able to manage these subtle things, then magic can be created in simple forms. It doesn't need to be ornate. It doesn't need to be value added. It doesn't need to be heavy or industrious or laborious. It could just be a simple white shirt and a blue pair of denims. This is one thing that you've heard for all your life, that a white t-shirt and blue denims and white sneakers is a great look. I mean, that is transcended from the 50s all the way to the 2050s, because the role that colors play, how they unlock it. So I keep asking my clients, it's like water and a whiskey, or it's like it opens up the flavor. And so we're looking to open up the flavor. That is what we focus on. I don't focus on additional creativity. So the emotional content over here is the feedback that we get. In my case, it's the feedback. They've never received so many compliments. And the reason they've never received so many compliments, even though they've worn so many branded pieces of clothing in the past, is because they've never been showcased. Most of the times the branded clothing comes to highlight. Most of the time the colors that are loud come to highlight. What is missing is that it's drowning the person. So when the first time that the client is actually showcased is when they receive the compliments, and they can't understand that. They're unable to understand where the linkage is, and they're like, dude, I've worn so many branded clothes before, but when I'm wearing Govinda's clothes, I'll get the most compliments. With the grace of God, then they're addicted to that compliment and positive reinforcement is if you think about it, everything is based on security. There's a certain security that they get from that, and that's what they want to multiply that feeling, and that's what we actually help doing for them. So we're not only a physical product service provider, we're subconsciously lending them that confidence. We're subconsciously presenting them out in that world for people to appreciate them.
Absolutely. So, from an emotional intelligence standpoint, people only want to be seen. They want to be seen, heard, and safe, emotionally safe, right? When you actually when you have a client wear something versus it wearing them, which is what I think
Correct.
you're
That is
talking about,
exactly
yeah.
weird. That is exactly what I was talking about.
Then they feel all those things because it's actually them. It's
Yes.
not the clothing. It's really them
But these are
coming
not
through.
things that we see on a regular basis in everyday world, because then how could designers sell their products? So, which is completely understandable. Listen, I'm in business today. We're successful because we're doing something right and people like what we're doing, but we are selling a product. But and many a times the disruption that I experience at work, the way that I work is we sit across the table with everybody and we spend an hour with them. So let's say in a 12-hour day, I've had 12 meetings, and 20 minutes in the meeting goes into teaching people how we look at life a little differently. Because I explained this to you earlier, or we talked about managing expectations. So you let people know when people come to you, they come, we have a beautiful studio. When people come to you, they look in the studio, they're already in awe, and they're coming to you with an expectation that you're going to give them a designer product. Now, what does that designer product means? That they don't attach the value to simplicity. So the first thing we do in the 20 minutes that I'm there is let them remind themselves where they are. This place is being created by me, so I may be doing something right. There may be some potential. And I trouble them to look at things from my perspective, which is not look for the product. Most people will look at that product and be like, wow, this is it. That's the one that I want. But that is only one part of the equation, or one part of the bigger picture. We encourage them to look at the story, the look. That's really, and we also empower them in that case to realize that no one product can outshine who you are. It's all of those things put together that make you who you are. And of course, you have to deliver. Once we get to that stage, you're looking sharp, then your personality takes over and you deliver. You feel good, you stand strong, you feel good about themselves. And that's the one big thing that we do that's different from the way that others work as well. It's product. It's not product, it's look. Teach people to work around that, yeah, from an emotional intelligence point of view. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, it's very emotionally intelligent. I think you're bringing up also a lot of question of this concept called taste, because it's very hard to define what taste is, right? And I think this is one of the secrets of taste is all of those things together.
Sure.
And also
Understand the balance.
balance. Yeah. I think also maybe having enough trust and enough, not just in the designer, but enough trust in self to know what
Believe
is
you're
best.
worthy
Yeah.
enough to be showcased.
Exactly. So you're not covering yourself,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
This is what we're doing with all these brands and things like this
I'm
subconsciously.
not suggesting that everyone's doing it
No,
consciously.
not at all. No.
I think that it's subconsciously. I think that if people were to spend that time on personal development and focus on themselves, then they're glowing naturally.
When you do feel stuck, though, so for example, if you are with a client that's insisting very much so to maybe go in a different direction, or they're not really, you have a method, right? You have a process, there's a journey that you're trying to take the client on. If they don't necessarily get there, how do you manage that? How do you balance? How do you refill your creative cup, if you will?
On a very, very honest approach, I will tell you as a friend that no one will work harder to make the client happier than I will, because it really matters to me. Maybe it has to do with some of those insecurities that I have as a person growing up in my life, that I like people to be happy. And there have been, I can count my fingers, maybe 4 or 5 times in my entire 15-year career where we may have fallen short of the expectations of a client. And that, as I said earlier, was all about managing their expectations. Recently, we experienced somebody wherein more is more. Whereas all my life and the upbringing that is from Bombay as a city today, less is more, and it does impact me. It impacts me purely as a personal failure because I was unable to service that client. But I would go do the very best that I have within me to do it. But if it's beyond my integrity, beyond my understanding of design, then honestly, as a friend, if I'm unable to design, unable to believe in something, unable to lend you the confidence that what we're doing is the right thing for you, or when being asked, is it looking good, I don't have the right answer for you. So I will rarely put myself in a situation where I'm uncomfortable, not because of personal growth, but I'm unable to relate to something that they're seeing as a particular way to do it. Recently, we had that experience and it was very heartbreaking amongst the many successes that I have to fall short of anyone's expectation when they generally, and they said borderline, needed to look gaudy. I was like, boss, I don't know how to do that. That is just not a part of my DNA, because everything we do is about you. Nothing we do is about the external product being put on you. So I don't know how to do that. So in response to that, as a friend, I'd say to you, that's great personal learning for myself. But the personal learning in this case is to follow my gut and do what I do best, it doesn't mean I'm stubborn. It just, and honestly, with most people in life, you may realize that they will act a particular way or because of some shortfall that they have or something that they're experiencing. So in this case, it's not me being stubborn, it's just that I'm not good at it. So I wouldn't put myself in a situation when I'm not good at something. So I would try to politely decline or remove myself from that situation in that sense. I don't know if that's the answer we're looking
No, no,
for, but from the
absolutely.
self growth. But the answer for me was, I think, the self growth answer is being comfortable with who we are and what we bring to the table, not in an arrogant way, genuinely, in a most genuine way, saying that, hey, this is what we can do. I'm unable to realize it. I'm of the belief that if we do this, we showcase you. 95% of the time it works. 5% it appears to be that some people want more, whereas it's something we are unable to give. So that's the learning for me. And it's this is healing for me as well, because these things, if you're an authentic person, which I like to believe I am, it bothers me. It bothers me. And I was telling Sunny as well, and as I'm getting older, it bothers me more, because it's if you're actually an honest person, it will bother you when you've let somebody down. Otherwise, water does not roll off my back, and that is something that I haven't learned to do as yet. And I guess that's also part of who I am, is I'm intense by nature, and that intensity is what people also see as my passion. So every single person who visits our studio will say that you'll eventually catch them smiling, because they've never seen anyone that is more intentional than I am, and they see it as passionate. Whereas for me, it's the only way to be, which is intentional, and a positively intentional, not in a negative way.
Absolutely, no, absolutely. I think also you're talking very strong, which I think a lot of people would like to hear about, when you having the power to say no to something. This is the other thing too. I think a lot of people struggle with saying no because they, exactly like you said, you're being stubborn or things like, it's not actually that. You're being authentic by
Trying
saying
to,
no.
yeah, trying to be honest with myself.
Honest.
Yes,
Yeah, exactly.
you live alone, you die alone. When you go up there, you're only answerable for yourself. So
Yeah.
all we have to care about is ourselves, in a
Yes.
positive way, not in a selfish way.
Yes. So it's, you go to sleep with yourself, you wake up with yourself every morning. That's it. So to be most comfortable within yourself is the most important thing.
Stigmas, we talked about taboos, we talked about certain associations people have to certain things, like whether it's a brand association, it's a association to the way that something is meant to be, that because that's the way it is being perceived, etc. The noise that I refer to is, I think that most people really don't know what they want. And I think that, let's say, as a person who's building a home and you ask somebody to give you a brief, very rarely will you get a crisp brief, because they don't know that. Not everybody is skilled enough to tell you that. Like, if you most of these self-coaching programs will tell you, where do you want to be in 5 years? What a tough question. How do you answer that question, right? So people don't know. They don't know what they want, and you have to listen to them. So when I'm hearing them talk, I am trying to understand what they're trying to communicate. And when I say remove the noises, I get to the meat of it. I get at the meat of what is it that they want to achieve, and how do we give them what they want to achieve. So when I'm talking about removing the noise, is that, first of all, there's certain things that they may not even want to say or can say, or because of social reasons, or they're just clouded in their judgment about why they think they want to do what they're doing. So what we tend to do is we remove the noise. We get honest with the client. We understand what he's trying to achieve, and then go after it and hammer it, and sort of potentially succeed at doing that. That's so when I say remove the noise, I mean get the meat of the things. Work around the bullshit. Again, between me and you, if I have an hour with the client, I need to get to that fast. If we're doing a bunch of stuff for them, then I need to get that fast. Sooner than later, let's get honest. What is it you want to achieve? Like, for example, we work with some grooms, and I find that younger grooms are, at least in the past, used to be insecure. They want the attention, they want the product to scream, they want, etc. But as I'm seeing times change, people are getting more self-aware. So the noise meant earlier is that sometimes, as I said, the earlier client I was talking about, when he said, I want something gaudy, so very clearly he wanted to be recognized, he wanted to be stand out, and most people don't want to stand out in today's day and time. But the point is that he was clearing what he was actually trying to say. You know what I mean? So clearing the noise is to get to the meat of things by removing the things that they aren't able to personally communicate with.
Absolutely. So asking, what I often talk about with my clients is, you really need to ask for what you really want, but you really have to understand what that is first. People need to take the time to actually do that. And most people don't do that.
Nobody, no, I don't know if they don't do that, but they don't know how to do that. Because I mean, honestly, just if that question that you ask yourself, most coaches will tell you, where do you want to be in 5 years? It is a very tough question to ask. How much money is enough money? Where do you want yourself? Where do you want your personal finances to be? These questions, I feel, are very large holistic questions. So most people in general don't know what they want.
actually ask very different questions when I'm coaching. Granted, my subject is a little bit different, my area of focus. I don't ask like where you want to be in 5 years, as in like what house you have, what money you have, etc. How do you want to feel? How do you want to be described? Where do you want to be emotionally in your emotional state? Like what kind of feelings do you want to have? Then we work backwards on what needs to
On
change in order to do that.
how to achieve those,
Exactly. Yep.
whether happiness or whether stability, let's say for example
Stability.
comes from
Exactly.
personal managing your personal finances better to, yeah, absolutely, that's a great way of doing that. So exactly what I meant by removing the noise as well is removing the obstacles that come in the way to actually communicate what you're really after.
Yeah, amazing. So you're present at every fitting, which I know is rare, but it's phenomenal. Why do you insist on this? I think I know already, but why do you insist on this?
As a friend, I will tell you today that it's an understanding of human beings. It's just that we're only as good as our team. There are times that your team, in a very honest, and you find nobody saying this, can be distracted, can be misled by something that's going on in their head and less focused. So when you're standing in front of a trial, you're standing and doing a fitting for somebody, and the master tailor is pinning. So in our case, in order to understand the changes or how many changes or how many inches, etc., take away, we actually use pins to sort of pin the extra spaces and do that. So during this process, there's a chance that if they don't look at something in a very methodical manner, that they can miss something. The hardest part in India today is, or maybe the world today, is for people to accept what their shortfalls or their mistakes. So one thing I'm doing is I always am part of every fitting. As personally, again, as a friend, I'm drawing back to cut to my insecurity because I'm not secure enough that my colleague is doing the best he can. And this is the most honest way of saying it, right? I want things to be perfect. Because I want things to be perfect, the time I invest that time that people may seem to believe is a waste of time. But when a perfect product is created, when that client feels like $1 billion, he's coming back to you over and over again, and he's recommending you to multiple other people. My intention of being a part of every fitting is to ensure that the product is perfect to the best of its capability that man can produce. Because as I said to you, there is a chance that somewhere in the process mistakes can happen. We want to mitigate and limit mistakes. This is the most honest answer you will get from me, and it's limiting perhaps in terms of my growth. But one has to answer that question: what is it that I want in life? But the point in today's fitting answer was mainly to control things. I mean, because I understand human flaws in that sense. Yeah.
Well, I think that's humanity, right? So of course there's going to be mistakes. I think maybe something else is coming out of this, not just a lack actually of personal development, but if you show up every time, you're showing up every time. So your team sees you showing up every time, and also when you see the outcome, which is this concept of everything is working, very fulfilling. They also see that the investment of them being intentional in what they're doing and being more aware of it has that outcome. It's even on a subconscious level. I'm
Yeah.
sure that's happening. So it's also
That if that
reinforcing
is
it.
indeed happening on a subconscious level, the commitment is tremendous. We have 80% of the members of our team are people who have been with me for 15 years. So they've actually seen the hard work that I put in. They see that I take nothing for granted, and I am not afraid of hard work. I work 12, 13, 14 hours a day if I need to. Or everybody in our industry who knows me, from the people that are partner suppliers to competitors, will tell you that they know that I work very hard. And there's no limit. And I guess I love what I do. So I don't even realize that it's working hard. It's just something that I feel good about, and I like to believe I'm good at, and that's what we do.
If you have passion for something and you love what you
Very
do, you
lucky.
never work a day in your life.
Never work in
And
a
I
day
feel
of
that way also. So I totally
very,
understand
very,
that.
very lucky. And I was
Yes.
very lucky to have found it before being 30. And I know that one can spend a large time in the life trying to find this. I've heard 1,000 people, and everything you read, these quotes, find your passion, find your passion. I'm blessed. I'm blessed to have found it, found it very early in my life, and having sort of trying to keep banging at it to bang it out there.
We talk a little bit about the pressure that maybe you do feel sometimes when you are designing, because there is a lot of pressure in custom design. It's a very intimate thing, right? So what do you do when expectations feel impossible to meet?
Many a times it may have to do with expectations, first to do with time. When somebody wants something in a very short period of time, I think one of the most important things is to, I don't know how many people do this, but reflect. Every year during certain months of the year today are extremely busy months, and there are times where you will doubt yourself, and then you have to be mindful and take a step back and look back at the past. there's not been a single time that we have eventually ended up falling short of people's expectations. So we need to look at the experiences we've had today to feel better about today. So I'm constantly learning as to how to deal with stress better, because there is a very stressful business. We work with hundreds of clients, and from a team's level, on a macro perspective, they look at it as hundreds of clients. One or two people may have been hurt. It's okay to deal with. But for me, we don't look at that. Because for me, for that one client, it's 100%. Which is when I said to you earlier as a friend that I can't roll water off my back. For me, each and every shortfall is major. So one has to look at the bigger picture at times, and to allow yourself certain comfort so you can heal to go back into dealing and doing what you do. But one is basically what I refer to as a friend is leaning into your experiences and learning how to work around a problem. I think that you need to be calm. So one of the things we're doing is definitely taking some time out, excusing myself in a situation, putting myself in a situation when I'm shutting my eyes and thinking about what is it I need. You have to ask the universe questions. There are times, as most entrepreneurs and maybe a few professionals will tell you this, that time is a big healer. And I found today that, and I know it sounds, for an academician, that sounds crazy, because my wife is an academic and she has a solution driven approach to things, which is, listen, if you want something, we need to go out there and get it. Let's identify what the problem is and let's go and get it, which is the point method to get there. Whereas sometimes when I'm faced with a situation that I may not essentially have the answer to immediately, I know that the answer will come in time. I don't know what it is, whether it's a belief in the universe, but today most people will resonate with that. They'll know today that if you're an entrepreneur that the answer will come. I don't have the immediate answer yet. It doesn't mean that you take it for granted completely. You're conscious, you're aware, you're constantly thinking what you can do about it. But it's a slightly different approach from the way that others approach it in that sort of solution-driven method. So
It's so sorry to interrupt. It's like resisting. So I think what I find as an entrepreneur is every time I resist something, so try to move things in a direction that I want or whatever, whenever I resist something versus allowing it to be, and I don't mean allowing it to be like just hands off and not caring, but where I accept, okay, this is what it is, and it will come. Something will come, then it does come. Otherwise, it's more.
but as I said, these are people who are more mindful, understand that balance. And I think what you're talking about is removing the inhibition from the problem, or removing the taboo that the problem will create, or the problems it is. Once you have your fear of that situation is gone, you have a more practical approach as well to it, and you're able to attract the right answer.
I ask myself often, like, where is this really coming from? What is really happening before? What is this actually telling me here? Like, or what am I actually thinking? What am I actually fearful of? What am I
Sure.
actually fighting or
You have to be
resisting?
honest with yourself.
Honest with
Yes.
yourself. Yeah, self honesty is a huge one.
Very important thing. And one of the things that I kind of live by is, and I know that my mother says that I'm hard on myself, but listen, in today's world, you have to know what your weaknesses are. We can all tend to be carried away. I tend to use fear as a tool sometimes to help me get to what I have to get to. And one of the things that I live by is a phrase, which is, the only person I'm fooling is myself. If you're not, the only person you're fooling is yourself. And if you keep saying that to yourself, you will be most authentic and most honest with everything you do, because, man, all everybody is trying to do on a daily basis is hustle. And sadly, in that hustle today, they end up maybe sort of hurting somebody on the way as well. So that's the one rule that I live by, which is constantly working myself to be honest with myself. If you're not honest with yourself, then honestly, you cannot be honest with anyone. You're daily caught in this trap of trying to fool and hustle people on a daily basis. And we in our country have this one word, which is that word, which is jugaad. We're always trying to sort of hustle and find our solution. I find that there, honestly, you could approach the situation with honesty and transparency. And I've always found that any situation approached with honesty and transparency can get you there faster than the hustle.
Yeah,
because the other person is not stupid enough to know what you're doing.
Right. I feel like the hustle is that noise a little bit, right?
It is
It's like
that
you're
noise.
just tuning out that noise and just getting right to it. There doesn't need to be that
One
complicated.
doesn't
It really
need
doesn't.
to be manipulated.
Yeah, it doesn't need.
That's it.
Nobody needs to be manipulated, and it doesn't need to be that complicated. It really doesn't.
Doesn't need to be.
No. So just to bring it back a little bit to your brand, so you built a label known for restraint and refinement, which are very elegant virtues. Do you remember a moment that you signed your first celebrity client?
If I'm a celebrity client, yeah, very much. I explained to you the story with Farhan, and I remember him saying that this year we're going to win it. Let's do it together. It's very kind. I don't even think he realizes the impact, because he must have impacted so many people's lives. I don't even think he realized the impact that he played or the role that he played in my life to give me that strength.
Yeah. How do you strike a balance between when you're working with clients, for example, like that larger than life kind of public images, and you're much more quieter grounded design
I
philosophy?
think they appreciate your authenticity. I think most of these people are surrounded by people, when I call them heroes, they don't only have to be Bollywood stars, they could be industrialists, they could be everyday people that have a following of people that follow them for whatever they're good at.
Mhm.
I think they value authenticity, and if they realize that I'm quiet, and I tell them, I say, listen, I may not say something, or I may not talk because I'm mindful or I'm thoughtful about something.
Mhm.
They're very happy with you being honest. I think that's one thing that is missing in today's world is the authenticity. So I think
Mhm.
that if people around you are, and if you're different than the general lot of people that are used to working with these people, they'd appreciate that.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think I think that they would appreciate it. So far, we haven't had any experiences.
How do you think they would describe you, your clients?
Oh gosh. So some people are not very used to people that are upfront and honest. So some people take it as a pinch of salt. They take me with a pinch of salt. Most often, most of my clients end up being friends. So most often when you break that barrier, they're like, boss, the first time you said this, I was like, wow, taken away. So
Yeah.
again, the intent as a friend is never such, but it's just so much more easier when you're honest.
Mhm.
I think that I'd like to believe that they'll call it refreshing after a certain point in time, but they'll call me brutal, honest. Some people may say that. Some people may believe, or hopefully believe, I have a handle of doing what I'm doing and I'm good at doing what I'm doing. But I think the word is they think that I know what I want and I go after what I want. I think that is winning for them, but
Yeah.
not in a bad, not a bad way. It's winning for them,
Absolutely.
hopefully.
Because they will also get what they want.
They also come back.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
as a friend, I'll tell you that perhaps knowing when you're doing something right is when you have a large repeat audience. We have a large repeat clientele.
Mhm.
And I think that we focus on just these small things of keeping people happy, then why would they not come back?
Absolutely.
Nobody would work harder than keeping somebody happy than I would. I would hurt myself, but I would invest in a client.
Absolutely. What has been your proudest red carpet moment thus far?
You know, I don't, I think, fortunately for me, I am not somebody that is so caught up in this celebrity world. So I will be honest with you when I say this, that I don't have any one particular red carpet thing, but any time, let's say Farhan, for example, may not have been conscious of the way he dressed for the years before we had a chance to meet him. So there were a few times where somebody would highlight how good he is looking. And I think that is the most fulfilling thing because they recognized a trend and a trait that it was moving towards him being consistently well dressed over time. I think that when your Bollywood stars recommend you to other Bollywood stars, that is, again, as a friend, is a great moment where you may believe you're doing something right. But they can have access to anything they want, and yet if they choose to work with you over anything that could be available to them, I think that's a positive. So as in, it may not have been a more public thing, but my personal victory is these sort of victories that I experience with them.
So you've styled for a magazine shoot recently. How was that different from your usual bespoke work?
Well, a magazine shoot, you're really doing. There was a collection they were doing for an agency where one had to showcase their fabrics, and this is actually was not a magazine shoot. This was a coffee table book that was being created by an importing firm that imported fabrics from and wove and imported fabrics from different parts of the world, and they would distribute them through different cities and centers in the country. Being somebody that's from Mumbai, one has a very less is more outlook. And one of the things that were interesting was finding that ability and way to create a greater use for this person's fabric so we could showcase the unconventional use of this fabric and the greatest success that we had in presenting that story and something that was appreciated even in smaller towns as well, because otherwise in India, in order for you to sell in the small towns, more is always more. So let's say, for example, where you and I may like a color, a print which has two colors, they like five colors. They like that multi-print thing because for them it's more value that is added for that, in that sense. The success we had with this book is when this company was selling to most of my competitors. When most of the competitors wanted to come and visit us to see how we did what we did that was so different from the way that they did what they did. It was mostly about bringing out the model in this case. In this case, was the model was presenting their product. So I don't know the model on a personal level, but the bringing out that person's strengths and highlighting the fabrics and highlighting the use of the fabrics in an unconventional way. I think that was a different way of doing it. from the way we generally work with people. We're showcasing the strength of a fabric as opposed to showcasing the strength of a person.
Of a person. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same. I guess yours. It's still the not the bones,
Attribute.
but the attributes, right?
Yeah.
So it's similar, different. Similar, different.
Absolutely.
Okay, if you had to express your entire design philosophy in one line, what would it be?
I think few words: thoughtful, mindful, would be perhaps the same. Modern. I think our taste is modern, m- detail, creativity, and easy. I think these are the sort of words that I would use to describe our sort of space. We want to create something that is easy to appreciate, so there's no resistance. The only way that somebody is able to appreciate something is when there's less resistance in being able to. I mean, I say resistance, I mean virtual resistance or emotional resistance, where it's so easy to accept the way you're looking or to appreciate the way somebody's looking. That is the way that I'd like to say we're creating product that is effortless. We're lending people effortless style on that occasion. We're lending it to them. If it may not be like we had this gentleman who came to work for us for his 40th birthday, and he dressed a particular way for his whole life, and we recommended he try something, which was an overshirt and in cream, in a lovely ecru cream overshirt, the cream knitwear. And in India, you tell somebody cream overshirt, cream knitwear, cream pants and beige shoes, they can't understand this because it's all cream. There's nothing contrasting. It's just the way that I'm dressed today as well today. So mm, he said he had never received so many compliments in his life, and I think that was again because we highlighted the person. I think that is one of the most beautiful things about what we do as well today, is finding that which can work and encouraging them to be open about the way we look at things. And I guess when they believe that you're so honest with something, that they believe that something good will come out of it, and they go with you.
They trust you.
Yeah.
There's trust.
There is trust. They align themselves with you. Yes.
So we've gone very deep in this. So the next segment is a little bit lighter. It's quick, it's instinctive, totally untailored. Okay, so there's no pressure, but please, it's rapid fire. So whatever comes to mind. Okay, so a fashion trend you delete forever.
Delete forever. So the one thing I don't enjoy, at least something that's growing in India, but as a developing country, is the ask for a pocket square. And if you really think about the history of a pocket square, this is a piece of cloth that was used to bring in and add color into an outfit and allow it to be highlighted. In India today, there is not a single look that is completed without a pocket square. So that's the one question that's so irritating. What's the pocket square going to be? And it's like, dude, the pocket square is one part of a checklist function out of the 10 items that are on your body today that has a role to play. So if a pocket square, like for example, many a times we'll give somebody a white pocket square, and then it's a white pocket square because they're looking for something printed, they're looking for something colorful. But if your outfit is, let's say, sage, which is such a beautiful color itself, and you have a shirt that is opening up the color sage, then you have to reinforce it with a pocket square that is actually further opening up the color of the outfit as opposed to a floral printed one that is communicating a brand or communicating wealth. And the other thing that I presently and the whole world is moving towards is brands, is too much branding. So that's another thing that you will notice today as a trend is label-less luxury, where again it resonates with exactly what we were talking about earlier, which is bringing out the attributes of the person. If the label is not lending to you, then it's perhaps the colors that are lending to you, it's the material, it's the fall, it's the softness, it's the overall look. So the labels and branding and thoughtless branding is what I would say is, if one could hopefully be done with it, that means, and it's providing a great top line for many brands still, but if it could be done with, that'd be great.
One celebrity who can wear basically a potato sack and still make it look fashionable.
I mean, is Indian celebrity?
I think any celebrity. I think it's cool.
I think as an Indian celebrity, I think his one is Milan Soman. He's a supermodel in India today, and that dude is even 50, 55 today, and he's sharp. He still looks sharp. Okay. On a global standpoint, I'm a big Jason Statham fan, so I think you can put a potato sack on this dude, and this guy is like always standing out in that.
This is true. This is true. A fabric you're currently obsessed with.
Seersucker. I love seersucker.
That's a good one.
It is also an Indian fabric. It is a story. This is a yoga story. I think most people don't know that.
I don't know.
It's the yoga was created in India, and then we didn't value it. It went to the West and came back to us. So, seersucker is actually a fabric that we made in India, and it reads as sheer shakkar, which means curdled milk, and that's why you have the texture of the fabric. And amazing. In India, we like things crisp. And therefore we didn't appreciate the natural form of the fabric, and it went to the West, and it came because it was organic and natural looking and came back to us. And today I'm spending thousands of rupees per meter selling to clients seersucker, which was actually created here in India in the first place. But I love the fabric.
Okay, I'm going to ask you again, your style, just but in 3 words this time, your own style.
I would say thoughtful and therefore tie that with being sort of mindful. I think thoughtful, timeless, and elegant. I think that's what I would like to stand for, because it shows your development as a person. You're not swaying. It doesn't mean that one is not open to change the times, but one is open, but it's more long term,
It's more conscious, I think.
more
You're more
conscious and long
conscious.
term. Yeah.
The most emotional client moment you've witnessed.
Actually, to be honest with you, we have been working with a young boy called Anmol Bansali, and I will tell you as a friend that his father introduced us to him when he was 15. We were making something for him for his graduation. At that time, 13 years later, we got him married. So, we started off with making him a graduation outfit. And then over the years, I want to be honest, I'm 45. For me to continue to be relevant for that particular age group, when you're 17 and you're 18, you're 19, all you're doing is wearing t-shirts and joggers and sort of overshirts and hoodies and that kind of stuff. And it evolved into a time where people spend a large amount of money on these street style kind of looks, which I don't resonate with at all.
Me neither.
And the point being today that yet he was able to find value for me, and we continued working with him over years. And I wouldn't say it's the most emotional in that sense, but it's truly a victory for me when we were able to stay relevant in his life, and eventually we were able to play a very large role. And this is a boy today who comes from a family of means, who could afford to spend money on any big name designer, and yet he chose to be authentic and true to his core and work with us, because nobody knew him better than we did. So we were able to create stuff that was authentically Anmol. And when he was very positive responses from his family members and everybody else that saw him dressed the way he was dressed in that day. So big victory for us.
Very fulfilling, I would think.
Very
as well.
fulfilling. Yes.
Okay, so your go-to stress snack when deadlines loom.
Stress snack. Wow. Gosh, it's in Bombay thing. It's called Save Puri. It's a fried puri with potato and fried vermilion, I think, on it, and delicious, but not healthy at all, and definitely a go-to snack for me.
Okay, if your label had a dating bio, what would it say?
Gosh, I never put myself out there in that sense. I'd say stylish and elegant, stylish and minimalistic.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that would be the right thing. Perhaps the right adjectives.
If not fashion, then what?
Alternative healing, or I'm very interested in the laws of the universe, and perhaps those areas today. I'm less inclined to finance and personal development. Whatever, if it's not fashion, I would focus my entire energies on personal development.
Yeah, growth. It's
personal growth and development. Yeah.
Fascinating is metaphysics and things like that are really interesting. Mind-blowing. It's really fascinating. Okay.
Mind-blowing.
Most unexpected place you found your creative inspiration?
I think, to be honest with you, one can find creativity in everything, but I think it always has to do with being mindful. I don't have any one particular place, but the way that I train myself is to look for the good in everything. So whether I'm in a Bangkok market, or I'm in the hills of a particular hill station, or a city like Milan, which is actually inspiring, or New York, one has to find it. You will find it whether it's through the use of colors in an advertisement in a magazine, through anything. It doesn't have to be done with fashion. It's just the blending and use of colors as well. Through a bar in Cotswold. One of the most unusual things is when I went to a pub in Cotswold, I found a great color association, or colors that I thought went really well together. Like bark gray and green was gorgeous. And so inspiration can come from anywhere.
Absolutely.
If you're looking for it in a non-pressured way.
Yeah,
or being open.
If you're open to the possibility of, which is something I'm always be open to the possibility of, because you'll never be bored ever, and curiosity is a great way to do it. Okay, a one-line mantra that you live by.
I said it earlier, the only person you're fooling is yourself.
Yeah. What is not part of your definition of success, even if the world says it should be?
What is not is defining success the way that it's palatable to most, which is by how much you've achieved. I think success could be defined in so many other ways. As personal development is success. Finding a way to overcome a problem is success. Enhancing yourself is success. But typically we associate success in our country or in many parts of the world with monetary growth and success. So that's not always what I see with success.
So people think I am blank, but actually I am blank.
Gosh, people think I'm difficult, but actually I'm very open-minded.
You know what you want, you say what you want, and that's it. It's
As a
authentic.
risk, it
And so
is.
people
It
take it that way.
is anything opposite of what people want to hear is difficult.
Yeah.
It's just as simple as that. He's so difficult. It's timing, but it's not difficult. The timing is the only way I can manage my time. The only one can manage their time is managing your time in advance. Whereas in India today, nobody manages their time in advance. Very few people manage their time in advance. They don't even know what they're doing 2 days later. Forget 10 days later.
Yeah.
So that is one thing that I find is is what people would know me for. Perhaps they think that I'm a bit difficult in some ways.
What is louder, your inner critic or your intuition?
Both the inner critic from the insecurity perspective and intuition from the strength perspective. If you notice from the way I say, the way I use the word insecurity, it is not a weakness. You have to find what drives you and just keep working on it. You know, and I said to you, and maybe I need therapy at some point to sort of allow me to overcome that. Maybe it'll catapult me in another place. But till then, I look at insecurities as a means to get what I have to, and leave no stone unturned to get there.
It's an internal motivation for you.
100%.
Which
Like,
is really
so is fear.
constructive.
I mean, again, so is fear. If you're, I mean, for somebody that you can be swayed into believing you're something and allow yourself to get to a stage where you feel fantastic and foolish. Fear is very important to bring you back. You know, you can lose it all in one day. You know, you've seen
absolutely.
companies come and crash and fall when they've missed something that they were arrogant to think that they wouldn't ever be missed or didn't see. You know, you look at Nokia, you look at BlackBerry, you look at those things today. Who knew that they would be extinct one day?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
But the awareness, you have great awareness of whatever insecurity or the fear,
life.
and then you make conscious choices.
Conscious choices.
Yeah, absolutely.
To maximize those.
Yeah,
yes.
And that is a really great decoding of success there. To have awareness, consciousness, and then you make choices from there.
I really hope. I mean, I think that if people are taught that in business school, I think they would turn out to be a more well-rounded people. If it's not only driven about, and I think the IB education and the way that people are sort of going about life, which is the journey, the path to get there, we will hopefully change that in the way that our kids are thinking today. When my kids both go to an IB school and they're all taught about the journey and never necessarily the end goal and experiencing it. And another thing today that I feel that is something that I definitely need to work on is the moment, living in the moment. That is something that I feel is amongst the many things that I need to work on. That is my next goal today. How do I find happiness and living in the moment and doing what I'm doing? That is something that I feel that could assist in people not having to keep on being stuck in chasing, which is also somewhere where I am today. Not chasing. How can we not chase and enjoy? If you spend that time to actually enjoy it, then it could add so much more value to your life. You know, I think that's what it is. So while I'm saying that, that's also something I need to work on.
That's the next chapter. There's always a chapter to go to next, right? Yes. So that's the next chapter. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here today.
Very happy to be here.
This was phenomenal.
I hope it was fun. It was fun for me.
It was excellent. I know you gave so much insight, so many tips, and inspired so many. So thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Today's conversation with Govinda Mehta has been a masterclass in subtlety, showing us that true style isn't about shouting from the rooftops, but about listening deeply to your client, to yourself, and to the unspoken stories behind every stitch. Govinda's approach reminds us that design is not just an art of aesthetics, but an art of empathy. He models more than clothes. He models presence, patience, and emotional intelligence in every interaction. Govinda, thank you so much for opening that window into your world. It's been inspiring and refreshingly honest. To all our listeners, remember, success is as much about the emotional journey as it is about the destination. Show up fully, listen closely, and let your work be the reflection of that. We'll catch you next week on Success Decoded, where we'll continue to uncover the stories behind success.